So welcome everybody. Just wanted to kick off our meeting about Paragon Mills this evening. Thanks so much for joining us. Really tonight, our goal is to just update everybody on the status of this project, to share the good news that this project is underway and moving forward. And then I wanted you to hear directly from the development team about the specifics of the project, hear about kind of the construction timeframes, what you can expect out in the field, and then just have a chance to really answer your questions and get in a conversation, Q&A about Paragon Mills. So Dave, we can go to the first slide. I should probably pause and introduce myself. My name is Bonnie Nickerson. I'm the City Planning Director for the City of Providence and also serve as the Executive Director of the Providence Redevelopment Agency. Like many of you, Paragon Mills has been such an important project to us, in part because of the location. Paragon Mills sits in the very heart, in the very center of Olneyville Square, of the Olneyville neighborhood. And for some time, for at least the past decade, the entire mill complex has been, for the most part, vacant. There have been some uses, but it has been very much underutilized, and big parts of the building have been vacant for some time. And so it's really been a priority of the redevelopment agency and the city to come up with a viable reuse that would be a benefit to the community and to the neighborhood and to the residents of Olneyville. So before we jump into that, I thought it would be interesting just to just go back in time for a minute, and just kind of remind folks what Paragon Mill really was all about. So the first building was built in the late 1800s, 1898. And it was really the what was known as the Worsted Company Mill, which was really producing yarn from and processing wool into yarn. And actually, you know, as we look at that entire corridor along the Woonasquatucket River, so many of those mill complexes were involved in this sort of trade. And then over time, a number of different uses and industrial uses, a tannery, factory, and other industrial and commercial operations have been there over the decades. But that image there is really a good image of the entire complex when it was completed, again, beginning in the late 1800s, all the way through to 1950. You can go to the next slide, Dave. And so this is kind of a current image. If you were to walk the site today, it would look a little bit more like this. So as you know, this building has been kind of landmarked on the city's industrial and commercial buildings district. And that was done in 2002. What that did is it made the property eligible for state historic preservation tax credits. The building was also listed on the National Register of Historic Places in the early 2000s, and that makes the property eligible for the national federal credits. And so a combination of the state and federal historic tax credits is a real boost to the redevelopment potential for this property. The Olneyville Housing Corporation had ownership of this building back in 2011 and had a number of different ideas of what could happen on this property. At one point, one city department was going to take over the entire complex. And, you know, after many, many different tries of looking at a potential charter school and mixed use development and many other potential uses, the city ended up acquiring the property back in 2018. So the PRA, in combination with the PBLF, took ownership of the property, and then shortly thereafter began kind of this process of looking for a development partner to come on board and sort of make that investment to bring this entire complex back to life. So Dave, you can go to the next slide. Just wanted to show an interior shot here. You can see kind of, you know, the building when it was in full operation, and then more of a current photo of what the interior looks like today. But, you know, this building is so important to us from a preservation perspective. It really is sort of emblematic of this corridor and this part of the city's industrial heritage, it's such a great example of the types of these buildings that were just humming and alive with jobs and sort of economic activity, and really the use of the river as a true economic engine for Providence. And so, we're thrilled today to introduce our development partner, the Alexander Company. As I said, back in 2018, we started a process of really looking for a development partner who specialized in historic properties, who knows sort of the complexities that these projects can bring, and also has the experience of developing affordable and mixed income housing as the Alexander Company does. And so I'm really, really excited to turn it over to Dave Voss. Dave Voss is the development project manager for the Alexander Company, and he's going to walk us through their plans for the property, and then we'll have an opportunity to ask some questions. So Dave, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Probably helps if I unmute. Thank you, Bonnie. And good evening, everyone. I'm excited to be a part of this project. We started looking in Providence about 2 years ago, following a meeting I had with the National Trust for Historic Preservation. They suggested that we make a visit to Providence. So there's a nice stock of historic buildings. The people are great to work with. And this building was made available to us by the PRA. The one advantage that this site had was that a lot of our project partners had a great deal of experience working on this site with the previous owners. DBVW Architects had been working on this for, I believe, well over a decade. And so they had a lot of institutional knowledge of the buildings, of the different sub-consultants that had been worked with in the back, from EA Engineering to Horsley Witten. So there's a great deal of experience and knowledge surrounding these buildings. So, we really started this project instead of from home plate, from maybe second base, and just having all these partners that really wanted to see this project happen. I can't say enough about the group of people that we've been working with to put this together. The Alexander Company has been redeveloping historic and urban infill projects for the last 35 years or so. And we really like to tackle projects that are in the heart of the urban areas and that have a tendency of bringing down the neighborhood. And then we like to bring it from the point of being a detriment to the neighborhood to being the jewel of the neighborhood. And we've had nice meetings with some of the neighbors surrounding our buildings. 1NB Builders and others have made themselves available to us, made their conference rooms available for these meetings. So it's just been a great experience. We were able to secure Track Builders as our contractor, another local team player. Track has been very good at breaking this project into small subcontracts to allow a good minority and women-owned business participation, along with some more seasoned and established subcontractors. So we're getting a nice mix of smaller subcontractors and larger subcontractors to help bring this project to completion. Rhode Island Housing provided the affordable housing tax credits for this project, and put the faith in us and the team that I've been discussing. They don't allocate a lot of projects on an annual basis, so we're very thankful of them to put their faith in us that we'd be able to get this project off the ground. And I can't say enough about the Providence Redevelopment Agency. Bonnie and Sam have been amazing. Without the Housing Trust Fund loan and the subordinate financing that they're providing for this project, it just would not have been possible. So a big thank you to the PRA for their involvement. These are some examples of projects that we've recently completed. The first one in the upper left-hand corner is the Soldiers Home in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That we've done in conjunction with the Veterans Administration and WIDA, which is Wisconsin's Housing Authority. And we're providing 101 units of housing for at-risk veterans at risk, meaning at risk of being homeless. And that building is being completed at a project cost of $44 million. The next project to the right of that is National Park Seminary. That's located in Silver Spring, Maryland. There are 66 apartments in the building that you see in the image. 2/3 of those apartments are affordable, 1/3 are market rate. The development plan included 90 new townhomes that were constructed by our development partner, EYA. And then there were 84 condominiums that were built in the historic buildings. Not only the 50 condominiums that we developed ourselves, but we also brought in the ability for 2 other developers to convert some of the historic buildings for a total of 84 condominiums. And that project came in at about $130 million. The Liberty project in Lorton, Virginia is in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. That's another mixed-use urban infill project. That was the former site of the federal penitentiary in Lorton. And we converted that into 165 apartments. 25% of those apartments are affordable. We included with our development partner, Elm Street Development, 157 townhomes and single-family homes. And we also provided other uses besides housing. This project includes 114,000 square feet of office space, 60,000 square feet of retail space, and was completed at a project cost of $200 million. And then the lower right-hand corner is the Fortress Building in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That building includes 132 apartments and 25,000 square feet of retail office space. And that was completed for a cost of $55 million. The Paragon is the adaptive reuse of the historic buildings that Bonnie described. There's 125,000 square feet of building. As with the other buildings, we will preserve the interior and exterior historic features of the buildings, including the brick walls. We'll be including the hardwood floors, polished concrete floors on the ground floor. We'll create 101 multifamily apartments and indoor and outdoor community spaces that we'll be showing you shortly. Included in this development is about 3,000 square feet of retail space. That space will be available for a bistro, a coffee shop, or an artist studio, or even a home office. As with our other communities, it'll be pet friendly. We're finding, especially today, a lot of folks have dogs, so we try to be pet friendly with no breed restrictions in our properties. There will be a club room overlooking the river, and we include outdoor terrace spaces and seating areas and grilling stations as well to provide some nice outdoor amenities for the people who live at the building. The fitness center will have state-of-the-art equipment comparable to what you'd see in a health club. And we also have storage spaces available for residents of the building as well. These are just some images of some of the community spaces that we provide in our projects. Everything from the club room to outdoor grilling areas, the seating spaces, and the fitness facilities. And we'll be showing you where those are located in the building in future slides. The floor plans, as far as amenities, they'll again have those historic elements like the brick walls. We also have varying finish packages. The upper floors will have hardwood floors, whereas the ground floor will have polished concrete floors. And so we try to mix up the finish packages so that people have a variety of finishes to select from when they're looking at apartments. We'll be utilizing stainless steel energy efficient appliances, and each apartment will have in-unit washers and dryers provided for the residents to use, along with the storage space. Many units have large walk-in closets, and some of the units have private patios overlooking the river. Some have private entrances, and there are a few townhome style apartments as well. That's one nice thing that these historic buildings provide, is that you don't have a cookie cutter floor plan that's repeated throughout the building. You have to work with the existing spaces, and that provides some unique opportunities for a variety of different types of apartments. These are representative examples of apartments that we provided in similar historic buildings. And you can see the hardwood floors, the brick walls, steel sash windows in some cases, renovated in other cases. We'll replace the windows if they are beyond the point of being renovated. Oftentimes you'll have exposed structural elements and mechanical systems. So there's a real nice contemporary finish juxtaposed to the historic finishes within the units themselves. As far as the mix of housing, we set aside 44 of the apartments, of the 101 apartments, to be affordable under the affordable housing program. And those apartments are reserved for those whose incomes are 60% of the area median income or less. And then the other 57 apartments are set aside under the workforce housing program. And those apartments will be available to those earning 120% of the area median income or less. And to give you an idea of what those levels are, if you are an individual and earning $36,000 a year, you'd qualify for the affordable housing. If you're earning $72,720 or less, you'd qualify for the workforce housing program. So this will make units available to people who are rent burdened currently, that they'll have housing that they can afford and have disposable income that they can spend elsewhere. As far as the mix, the majority of the units are one-bedroom units. Under the affordable housing program, we have 34 one-bedroom units, 8 two-bedroom units, and 2 three-bedroom units. And you can see again the range of size in the apartments, anywhere from 676 square feet up to almost 1,400 square feet. And this also provides the maximum monthly rent levels that can be charged for those apartments under these programs. So a one-bedroom under the affordable housing program, the maximum rent we can charge is $850. And under the workforce housing program, that maximum rent is $1,550. So you can see that given these rent levels, there will be rent levels that are set aside for people of varying incomes and abilities to pay. The construction schedule is technically began. We're currently going through the buyout of the subcontracts, the environmental cleanup and selective demolition will be beginning soon. There are a couple of non-historic buildings that will be coming down to clear space for parking and some of the community spaces. And there are some environmental cleanup issues that we need to address before we can start marching subcontractors into the building to build the construction. In spring of 2022, we will start accepting the applications for housing. If anyone's interested in renting an apartment, I highly encourage them to get on our waiting list. Oftentimes these buildings can be almost fully leased before we open the doors. So if you're interested in living there, I would highly encourage you to visit our website. That'll be on the last slide, and get yourself on the waiting list for those apartments. And we expect the summer of 2022 that the construction will be completed and we'll be moving families and individuals into the building at that time. I will walk us through the site plan, and then I'll turn it over to Christy with DBVW, and she will walk you through the floor plans and some of the amenities that are included in the buildings. But from a site perspective, this building is located on the intersection of Manton Avenue and Delane Street. Schneppel Woodworking is in the upper right-hand corner on Delane Street. Dunkin' Donuts is on the left-hand corner, and Cathedral Arts is on the lower portion of the site. And you can see the river kind of wraps around and bounds the south and east side of the site. But what we'll be doing is, again, demolishing some of the non-historic buildings on the site to create parking and some outdoor community spaces and access into the building. The orientation for the site will primarily be off of Delane Street, which you'll see from the renderings. So we have 2 different entry points, one off of Delane, and then another entry point coming through the courtyard into the apartment building from the west. And here you can see the commercial space, which is roughly 3,000 square feet and has living units above it. And again, to point out some of the outdoor spaces, and Christy will be drawing your attention to these in the future too, but we have courtyard seating, terrace seating facing the river that will be available to the residents, private patios on the units facing the river, and then also an outdoor grilling area off of the community room on the southeast corner of the site. And Christy, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Dave. You guys hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. So we'll take you inside. Now this is a little small, but see if this is working too. This is our Delane Street entrance here. And as Dave mentioned, we have a Manton Ave Street entrance here. And when you get in there, you can see by the shape of this building that there are many buildings. I believe that this portion of it is 8, and then building number 9 is over here. Every one of these 8 buildings is different in structure and structural systems, which they'll all be exposed. The ceilings are very high. There are 2 floors, very high ceilings, and then there's a partial 3rd floor that's a little lower, but it will have all exposed deck and painted wood deck. So when you get in there, it feels sort of like a village in a building, because you can go in a lot of directions. But because of this, we've really tried to keep the corridors nice and spacious and big. And there's a lot of the different column systems that are exposed in the corridors. A cool feature right here is a tower, is a square tower, and this goes the whole way up through the building, and we've disengaged it with the corridors so that you can sort of walk through it and see it in a nice big space as you're making your way between the stairs and the elevator. The units themselves have, like I said, very high ceilings with exposed structure. The windows are absolutely massive, some steel replica and wood replica windows, which you'll see in the renderings in a second. Brick exterior walls, and a lot of the walls in the interior are partial height for a reason, so that it really exposes the whole volume, and you can feel the volume. And so the closets are short, and some of the bedroom walls are short. There's a lot of kitchen islands, and it just feels like one big open industrial space. And like Dave was saying earlier, it's modern and cool. So I think some of the other amenities shown here, there's a fitness room. Outside of the fitness room is a community terrace for anybody that faces the river. Here are the units that have private terraces facing the river. And there is a large community room. And this is where they were saying it's like a club room, and another terrace out here for grilling and hanging out. What am I missing? Dave mentioned the commercial space in building 9 here. And it's a very actually nice, generous sized fitness room, and the management office is right in the middle. I think you can go ahead, Dave. Back up 1. There we go. All right, so here is a view as you're going down Delane Street, and this is the Delane Street entrance. And you can see the 2-story portion of Mill 1, which is what Bonnie was saying earlier, I believe is 1898, the very first one. At the top of that is a monitor, which will be on the 2nd floor in the corridor, and it will be exposed. There'll be a ton of light, very cool thing to look at. Go ahead, Dave. We're traveling down the street a little bit. You can see the entrance a little better, and you can see that, you know, the sheer size of the windows, really big. Go ahead. Closer yet to the main entrance. Nice canopy. And the secondary entrance here off of Manton, which is, I think, the same image as Bonnie was showing earlier of the today. And this is the courtyard right in the middle, where there'll be a ton of, you know, new seating, and you can see the big windows again. Also right here is that tower I was mentioning before that goes the whole way through the building. That will be kind of a feature. All right, go ahead. Now, if we are across the river, river's looking really good. On the left is the original boiler building, which is where the townhouse units will be located. I'm sorry, that's on the right. And if you move a little farther to the left, the blue umbrellas is outside the fitness room. That's a terrace. Yep. And then as you move further to the left, you can see the units with the individual terraces facing the river. And then in the last slide is the community room and the community terrace with the outdoor grills. Kind of moved by those a little fast, but I believe that's it. I'm Who shall I turn it back to, Catherine or Bonnie?
You can turn it right back to me. I just want to chime in really quickly to one, just say thank you for everyone for being so incredibly flexible. We had a little last minute technology issue, so thank you. We're still living through this COVID virtual meeting stuff, so there's going to always be some bumps along the road. So I just wanted to thank everyone for that again. And so we will have time to answer some questions. If anyone has any, you can use the raise your hand tool and I will give you allow you to talk. I do also know that there are some folks, many folks actually right now tuning in via Facebook. So I will scan that quickly for comments as well. So hold on, I'm just gonna give you all a moment to see if you have any questions.
I'm going to jump in with a question. Dave and Christy, I know you mentioned the construction schedule, but could you go through that again? When people will be likely to, what kind of activity do you expect to see over the next couple of months, and when will that start to pick up?
I believe they've started demolition, and I don't know, Dave, if you want to, it's picking up right now in April. So over the next couple of months, we'll be clearing out the building and identifying any unforeseen structural issues. And then, like Dave said, taking care of some of the remediation that needs to be done right off the bat.
That was a great question. Do you have any other questions, Bonnie, that you want to pose to the group?
I'm wondering if folks had questions or concerns about kind of what's happening on site. Is there a good contact for them to reach out to? Would it be somebody at Track Builders, or who's a good contact that folks could be in touch with if they had questions or wanted to be in touch with somebody on your team?
The best site is the site that's on the screen right now. If you go to ParagonMillsApartments.com, we have people in our office that monitor that site. And if there are questions, they will direct that question to the person best able to answer.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And for the group, I have a question from the Q&A from Providence Preservation Society. They said they're curious about flood mitigation for ground floor units. So can anyone weigh in on some of those mitigation efforts?
Sure, I can weigh in, and then Christy can correct me if I say anything wrong. But part of the plan, there are parts of the building that are in the floodplain that we will be removing from the floodplain by raising the grades outside the building. And we'll be going back to FEMA and updating the flood map when that's done. But at a minimum, the grade will be 2 feet above the 100-year floodplain at the outside of the building. And any basement spaces or crawl spaces we're filling in as part of our redevelopment plan. So there will be no risk of flooding for basements or crawl spaces. And with the floors being a minimum of 2 feet above the 100-year floodplain, we feel there will be a very, very, very minimal risk of flooding in the future.
And that's why you'll have beautiful polished concrete floors as well. So because we're filling in all of the crawl spaces.
And I have a question coming in from Facebook. Thank you all for multitasking. It says, regarding the construction schedule, it seems like around 1.5 years to finish the project seems a little fast. Is this typical for a project of this scale?
That is typical. And it's kind of funny because I look at old historic images of these buildings being built, and I see that a building of this size was built in the 1920s in 9 months. And then I always wonder why our contractors take 18 months to renovate a building that was built in 9. And I know things are different now with manpower, but no, this is, all kidding aside, it's really a pretty typical construction schedule. In fact, we probably would have expected this project to be able to be completed in 15 to 16 months. But with COVID, there's a little bit more uncertainty as far as materials being delivered and reliability of workforce being on a continual basis on the site. So there's probably an extra month of duration built into the schedule on this project than there would have been pre-COVID.
So I just want to do one more scan. I'm not seeing anything in the chat or in the Q&A, but let me check over on Facebook really quickly to see if there are any other questions coming in from there. I do not see any now. Bonnie, we wanted to mention something exciting about the potential date for a groundbreaking. I wanted to turn that over to you and give you an opportunity to talk about that quickly.
I will confirm with you on date and time, Catherine, so I'll let you say that, but I did just want to invite everybody who's tuning in tonight. We're actually going to be on site to celebrate the groundbreaking for this project in May. And so please come out. It's really good, meant to be a community event and a celebration for this project and all the progress that's been made. So come out. I believe it's May 21st. I got that right. And Catherine, what time are we going to gather?
Right now we are looking at noon. If that changes, we'll be sure to let everyone know via Facebook and social media and on our website, but that is the time of the date that we are eyeing for this exciting groundbreaking.
Excellent. Great. Hope to see everybody there. And I'm so excited that it's in person because I just cherish in-person events right now. It's so exciting.
Christy and Dave, any parting words before we let our audience depart for the evening?
No, other than that, we're excited to be working in Providence, and we're hoping this will be our first and certainly not our last project. We've really enjoyed our experience and look forward to seeing this project, not only being at the groundbreaking and being able to see everyone in person again for the first time in over a year, but also looking forward to getting the project completed and welcoming new residents to the building.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for coming out to